Good evening, everybody. Oh my God, it's so hot. It is like 90 degrees in the UK today, and tomorrow I believe is going to be the same. And it's just so hot, I can't think. So I've spent most of the day, probably at least 5, 6 hours, putting all of this together, this case together. It's just so much to it. And probably going to watch it, and you're probably going to think, oh, he hasn't talked about that, or he's missed out this bit, or he's missed out that bit. And that's totally understandable because there is just so much, so many offshoots to this story. Hi JD, hi Firefly, hi Sheila, Stella Bella, hi BZ Mama, how is everyone? Hope you're all having a great Wednesday. Hi Beth, hi I'm at Early, that's a good name, I'm at Early. Hi Hillary, oh thank you. Yeah, so this is, hi my three rosebuds. This is what I've researched. This is what I looked into. I've took what I've thought to be the key aspects of the story. Just going to take you back a little bit of the timeline. I'm not going to dwell too much in the past, but just hopefully try and give you an insight into, what happened. Maybe Lori's mind, Chad's mind, Alex Cox. Of course, if you don't know, he's now dead. Some might say thankfully. Um, just try and give you an insight really into the story, which ultimately is an absolute tragic story. You got four suspicious deaths, two children, a young loving mother, and really a relatively young loving father, who have just innocent people that have died at the hands of evil, really. Just wicked people. But now, hopefully, there's going to be some form of justice in the case now that's going to go against Lori and Chad, and potentially others. We don't know. I think there's certainly a lot of people that are involved in this story that maybe know more than they have said thus far. I know there are people starting to come out, family, friends, people to do with the church that are starting to come out, starting to speak. Did they know more? Could have, it's a tragedy. Could people have acted sooner? Could a lot of this been prevented? Certainly the children, certainly the children's deaths, in my mind, could potentially have been prevented if maybe people had spoke up sooner. But of course, as we know with these cults and stuff, people just get so brainwashed and so manipulated and controlled by people. Sometimes they just can't see what's going on. But at what point does religion just become not reality anymore? Do you know what I mean? And tragically, in this case, that seems to be what's happened. Maybe these churches need to be looked into. Maybe this cult needs to be looked into. Who knows? So the picture you see on the screen, I'm going to be putting up some images as well as I go. So that's going to be the right hand side, or the images will change. So the image you see there, I don't know if some of you may have seen it. It was a picture released a couple of days ago by the FBI. It's a new photo of Tylee and I'll call him JJ. Okay, he's Joshua. I'll call him JJ. At Yellowstone National Park on September 8th, 2019. There was a previous picture, but it wasn't as good a picture as that one. So that was actually taken the day before Tylee went missing, basically. And it's just, it's sad to look at, isn't it? The two of them smiling, hugging, proud, happy, brother and sister, whole lives ahead of them. And, look what's happened to them. Tylee was 17, JJ would have been 8 in May. Smiling with them, unfortunately, is her uncle, Alex Cox, Lori's brother. On the right, Alex is now dead also. But police now believe that Alex likely transported the children's bodies to Chad's home in Idaho to be buried. And how they actually died, precisely when they died, and who was responsible, they haven't yet been able to determine. But they did determine that Alex's phone pinged on Chad's property the very next day after this video was taken, September 9th, allegedly in the exact same spot where investigators found Tylee's remains. And the exact same thing happened the day after JJ went missing. Alex's phone pinged the very next day at Chad's property at the same location where JJ's remains were found. And they were visits that were unusually long. He'd been there a couple of times before on very short visits. These were unusually long visits. This was all stuff picked up by the FBI's cellular analysis team. Alex's phone and vehicle GPS data gave them many clues, and that's how they kind of came to that conclusion. I'll go over that a little bit later on. So many of us now pray for answers, really, don't we, to this? It's a horror story, really, isn't it? Try to make sense of it. But in reality, this could take a long time to find out exactly what happened. As I say, to find out exactly how the children died, when they died, at whose hands did they die. And of course, it's not just the children. There's also Chad's former wife, Tammy Daybell, and Lori's former husband, Charles, also died suspiciously. It's just a never-ending horror story. Just when you think you know most of the case, there's so much else that you don't know. It's unbelievable. There's so many other people involved in this case that have got stories to tell. Some are starting to speak now. There's going to be so many more. I can just see it. There's going to be loads. So, story kind of starts, really, a whole web of horrors. 2001. This is when Lori married her third husband, who is Tylee's father. It's Joseph Ryan. They were married for 3 years before filing for divorce in 2004. And Tylee stayed with Lori and her older brother, Colby Ryan. So I'm just making sure I get the right pictures up. Because Colby Ryan with his mum. Colby was from Lori's previous marriage, and Joseph was his stepfather. If it gets a bit confusing, trust me, it is confusing, but you may need to watch it back a couple of times. I'm sure a lot of you web sleuths probably know a lot of what's the whole story, but just in case you don't, if it seems confusing, just go back and watch it again. It should make sense. I hope I'm going to make sense of it. In 2006, Joseph filed a motion against Lori, stating that he had been denied all visitation with his daughter Tylee for a whole month, and that she was trying to keep his daughter from him. This lawsuit led to a dispute between Joseph and guess who? Lori's brother, Alex Cox. Through this whole story, Lori's brother Alex Cox doesn't come across as a very nice character, to be perfectly honest. That's her brother, Alex Cox, who's involved a lot in this story. Alex threatened to kill Joseph Ryan and shot him twice with a stun gun in a parking lot in Texas. He was sentenced the following year to 3 months in prison for aggravated assault in the second degree. The custody battle between Joseph Ryan and Lori Vallow dragged on until Joseph's death in 2018, with much of the same antics and games that are on display by Lori now as she awaits trial. Joseph died in his apartment, and it was a whole week before a neighbour discovered him. He was aged 51, and it was reported as a heart attack. But just last month, the FBI have started to investigate Joseph's death. It's going to be difficult because he was cremated, so I don't quite know what they're going to find there, but they have gone back as far as Joseph's death, Lori's third husband. And that's as far back as they believe that the suspicion goes, as far as I can see. If you hear a pause when I'm talking, I'm just finding the right image to put up. So, in February 2006, Lori married her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, and the two adopted Joshua, nicknamed JJ Vallow. So I'm sure you're all fully aware. JJ was the biological grandson of Charles's sister Kay Woodcock. It was Kay's husband Larry who would eventually raise concerns to law enforcement over the disappearance of JJ and Tylee. It was them that kind of raised the alarm, if you like. And that is Kay and Larry Woodcock in the bottom image on the screen. In 2014, Lori and Charles moved to the Hawaiian island, Kauai, which you're probably familiar with. It was about a year after moving there that Lori started to become obsessed with Chad Daybell's books. So this was in 2014. As we now know, books about apocalyptic scenarios based loosely on Mormon or Latter-day Saint theology. It's through this obsession that Lori started to get close to Chad. The family eventually moved to Arizona sometime between 2016 and 2017. Sometime in 2018 is when Lori first met Chad. So I guess that what's turned out to be an absolute fatal attraction, isn't it? It's kind of almost like a perfect storm. She met him when he was teaching an evening class at the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. The two of them reportedly became very close very quickly, traveling together to a religious conference in Utah where Chad gave talks on his books. They began to talk pretty much daily from then on. I think they had their own special telephones specifically so they could communicate solely on. Things started to really unravel in early 2019 when Lori was still married to Charles. But of course, at the same time, Lori and Chad were becoming more and more infatuated with each other. Some of you may have seen the image that there's the video from was when Charles went to confront Lori at a hotel in January 2019. You know, and he was just sort of desperately trying to ask for help, really. Things were really starting to go downhill from then on. She had clearly kind of lost touch with reality at that point. Lori and Charles at this point were estranged, and in February 2019, Charles had filed for divorce, saying that he feared that Lori would kill him and that she had developed cult-like beliefs. She viewed herself as a god preparing for the second coming of Christ, and she would kill him if he got in the way of her performing that mission. As I say, the image you see there is from the police body cam footage at a hotel where Charles is trying to find Lori at a hotel. And he's basically pleading for help from the police. I know a few of you did comment, saying that were the police taking him seriously? Should they have taken him more seriously? He was clearly, asking for help. He was concerned about his children. And, that's a very contentious subject there. Should the police have helped him more? In court documents filed by Charles in February 2019, there is an excerpt about Lori's beliefs. Lori has recently become infatuated, at times obsessive, about near-death experiences and spiritual visions. Lori has told Charles that she is sealed, which means eternally married, to the ancient Book of Mormon prophet Moroni, and that she has lived numerous lives on numerous planets prior to this current life. Lori also believes that she was married to James the Just in a past life and also lived as Mary French in the 1800s, who was Joseph Smith Jr.'s natural grandmother. Lori also informed Charles that she is a translated being who cannot taste death, sent by God to lead the 144,000 into the millennium. Lori believes that she is receiving spiritual revelations and visions to help her gather and prepare those chosen to live in the New Jerusalem after the Great War, as prophesied in the Book of Revelations. On January 29th, 2019, during a phone conversation between the parties and after their physical separation, Lori informed Charles that she was a god assigned to carry out the work of the 144,000 at Christ's second coming in July 2020, and that if Father got in her way of her mission, she would murder him. That's crazy, right? That just sounds insane to me. Yeah, religion did start it all. I think yeah, I suppose, was religion the catalyst? I mean, were these just normal people before and they just suddenly became this way once they got into the religion? Or were these kind of, were they already kind of on a path to self-destruction, if you like, in their lives? That's something to really think about, isn't it? It does seem though that religion was the real driving force behind what happened, that's for certain. Charles's previous wife, before he married Lori, has said Charles was a very religious man and faith is a big thing for him. For him to say things got that weird means that it was weird beyond what any of us know. Otherwise, he would have probably jumped right in and gone along with it. Charles was raised Catholic but converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints after meeting Lori. During divorce proceedings, Lori disappeared in February for nearly 2 months and took Tylee to Hawaii. She seems to like going to Hawaii, doesn't she? They stayed at the Kauai Beach Resort, the same hotel where she and Chad were later stopped in January of this year. She was served search warrants and an order to produce the children. Charles ended up stopping divorce proceedings and tried to work things out with Lori. Just flicking pics, guys. Bear with me. The family were living in a Phoenix suburb of Arizona when in July 2019, Lori's brother Alex Cox shot and killed Charles Vallow. Lori acted nonchalantly with the police, laughing and joking like literally nothing had happened. Alex claimed that it was in self-defense after Charles allegedly attacked him with a baseball bat, but the investigation did not go far before Alex died of a blood clot on his lung in December. Alex waited 5 minutes to call the police, and later on that day, I can't believe this, later on that day, Lori threw a pool party at the house. Can you believe that? She threw a pool party at the house where her husband had just been shot and killed on the same day. Surely that's a massive red flag, right? I mean, just if that was your neighbour or something, you'd be like, what the hell, wouldn't you? No, it just seems like a major red flag for me that got missed. Apparently the party was so loud that a lot of neighbours could hear it. Charles's ex-wife believes 100% that it was planned, and Charles had been telling people that if anything happened to him that Lori was behind it. Charles's family and friends want people to know that he was a loving person and father and friend. He was always looking out for JJ's protection. We know autism is difficult to deal with, and for him to have that type of patience is just extraordinary. He was a very, very kind person. I just wish that Lori would have divorced him and not had him killed. It's a huge loss for the family, friends, and the kids. Charles was nicknamed the Disneyland Dad because he was so much fun. Start of the senseless deaths, isn't it? You know, she had her husband killed because she thought he was getting in the way of her mission, if you like. Now, why couldn't she have just divorced him? Yeah, why didn't cops arrest Alex? Just shot a man dead. I mean, yeah, great. Said it was in self-defense, but probably a lot of people are going to say that, aren't they? Yeah, and he was a known felon. He's got previous. He had that assault, which I mentioned earlier, on her previous husband. Shot him with a stun gun. Surely they could have looked that stuff up and arrested him. I don't understand that at all. The fact she then had a pool party afterwards just beggars belief, doesn't it? On or around September 1st, 2019, Lori moved to Idaho with Tylee and JJ, getting an apartment in Rexburg and spending time with Chad. The couple had now known each other for a while and would sometimes participate in podcasts for Preparing a People, aimed at members of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and were talked about preparing for the end of biblical times. At this time, Chad was married to Tammy Daybell, a 49-year-old school librarian who helped him run his own small publishing company. As we now know, Chad wrote numerous doomsday books and books of his experience as a gravedigger. When Tammy died in October 2019, Chad received a huge $430,000 life insurance payout. At that time, her death was ruled to be natural causes, and it's since come to light that Chad refused an autopsy, and the county coroner allowed Tammy to be buried without one. As suspicion has risen on Chad and Lori, Idaho authorities decided to exhume Tammy's body. That was in December, and everybody, including the family, is still awaiting results. Toxicology results should be able to determine whether or not Tammy was poisoned. A friend of Tammy's family has since come forward and said that Tammy had pink foam coming out of her mouth when she died, and that the funeral felt very rushed. The funeral was just 3 days after Tammy had passed. A former friend of Chad's, Julie Rowe, claims that he predicted Tammy's death. Chad did. Angels had told him that he was going to lose Tammy. Yeah, right, Chad. Angels. More like you're going to have her murdered, or you're going to do it yourself. Just days before her sudden death, Tammy posted to Facebook about a weird incident that happened to her. She wrote, "Okay neighbours, something really weird just happened and I want you to know so you can watch out. I'd gotten home and parked in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded. I yelled for Chad and he ran off around the back of my house. I have no idea what his motive was, and he never spoke even after I asked him several times what he thought he was doing. I was about to smack him with my freezer meals from enrichment tonight when I decided to yell for Chad instead." I thought that was a bit weird. That was like days before she died. A friend of Tammy said that her unexpected death at the age of 45 didn't make any sense because she was healthy and very fit. She was training for a 5K run and working as a school librarian. This whole situation has raised some very poignant questions. In the state of Idaho, should somebody like Tammy, someone who was in good health, active and fit, no recent history of ill health, and suddenly just passes away in her sleep one night, should they be allowed to be buried without any autopsy being performed? I put that to you. How do you feel about that? Someone who's not expected to die, someone who's fit, they've got no, as I say, no history of ill health, and suddenly they go to bed and they wake up the next morning and they're gone. Do you think that's okay that they can be laid to rest without any kind of autopsy being done? This is what happens in the state of Idaho. Most states, through my research, most states you do. The family don't get a say. It goes to the state medical examiner's office and they perform an autopsy. It's certainly, in this kind of situation, but in the state of Idaho, you don't have to. It certainly didn't happen in this case. And secondly, should somebody then be allowed to claim that person's life insurance? No hard questions asked, no autopsy. Chad allegedly refused an autopsy, but they were happy to hand over her life insurance to him. To me, there's some really important questions that have been missed there. And Chad must have been laughing. Because he took all that money, flew off with Lori to Hawaii, living it up on that money. In many other states, a case like Tammy's would be automatically referred to the state medical examiner's office. Sudden death while in apparent good health is something that would be instantly flagged up. The state would want to know why you died. You're not expected to die. Now, I don't know the regulations around family members having a say. Is that out of the ordinary? I don't know. But through my research, it seems that many states say it is their law and it's for the good of everybody that in cases of sudden unexpected death, an autopsy is performed. But in Idaho, there is not a state medical examiner's office. There is not one in Idaho. Deaths are handled by county coroners who ultimately determine whether or not an autopsy is performed. County coroners serve a 4-year elected term and are only required to attend a coroner's school and complete 24 hours of additional training every 2 years. In rural communities like Fremont County, where Tammy was, this is a part-time job and they have limited resources. So I put to you, is that something that seriously Idaho need to look at? Something they need to address? It was a quick funeral. Yeah, it was 3 days. 3 days after she passed, she had her funeral. Yeah, and the life insurance was paid out. No questions asked without an autopsy. Something to think about, isn't it? You know, given the circumstances. Young, fit woman training to do a 5k run, no history of ill health. Suddenly, boom, she's dropped dead, or she's, passed away peacefully in her sleep. Is that not suspect? Yeah, 400 and is it 20? 430k is what Chad got for Tammy's life insurance. And then Chad, 17 days later, Chad marries Lori in Hawaii. 17 days after Tammy passed. Lori's husband Charles passed in July, so it was 3 months. There's just so many suspicious questions and are questions that should have been asked, surely, in this story. It's hard to fathom how these things weren't addressed. Hey Kelly, hi Glam Dolly, hi everyone. I haven't said hello. Sorry, I'm in my head's stuck in my writings. On June the 11th this year, Tammy's family issued this statement. This was after the children's remains were found. As the family of our beloved Tammy, we want to extend our deepest and heartfelt love and sympathy to the families of Tylee and JJ. We share the pain of the tremendous and shocking loss that you are enduring. We still suffer, and we will suffer with you for many years to come. Please know that we will continue our prayers to strengthen your families as you are finally able to properly lay to rest your precious Tylee and JJ. As matters move through the judicial process, we pray that each of our families can be strengthened and trust that justice will be swiftly served. We wish to thank the many members of law enforcement and the FBI who continue to work tirelessly as investigations continue, and the public who have shown such love and support for our families. We also ask that our privacy continue to be respected at this time as we continue to grieve for Tammy and the Woodcock and the Ryan families grieve this unfathomable loss. So many people that have been made victims in this story. It's just heartbreaking. So at this time, or at this point, Chad believed that his stepchildren were possessed by evil spirits and their dead bodies would be concealed by an earthquake that he predicted. This is according to a friend of Chad's. Now there's other friends that have come forward and told how the couple have become or had become consumed by what they thought were visions from God, and they were members of a cult-like offshoot of the Mormon church. It was called a vow, which stands for another voice of warning. A vow claims to have 20,000 members worldwide, and it's an extreme form of doomsday prepping, where members stockpile food and ready themselves to live in the mountains to survive a future war predicted by their founder. The website, there is a website for anyone who's interested to look at it. I can't remember the link, but if you look up Idaho AVOW, AVOW, you'll find it. It publishes paid-for articles covering spiritual revelations and near-death experiences, and hosts forums for Latter-day Saints to have discussions or offer conjecture about their religion. It's a paid-for site run by a gentleman by the name of Christopher Parrott. The forum covers a variety of topics relating to the church, and it makes it clear that anti-religion or apostate material or doctrines should not be discussed. However, plenty of material on the site goes beyond or even contrary to official church teachings. Some are substantially different than what most members of the church believe. A large section of the site is devoted to discussions on emergency preparedness and prophecies, dreams and visions. Some people say it is an enlightening place to gain a deeper understanding of their religion, while others say that it is a place where Latter-day Saints extremists find like-minded people. Is this something that law enforcement need to look into? Do they need to looking into this church, or rather this extreme offshoot of this church? How many other Chad and Loris are in there? How do you know? There could be another one, right? Who's to know? If their thoughts are that extreme, could there be another Chad? Could there be another Lori in that group? Is that something they need to look into? Most of the people of that church reached out because Chad was a frequent contributor to the site. A lot of people on AVOW did defend Chad before his arrest, believing the stories in the press about him were media sensationalism or even a hoax. But I'm sure they likely feel very differently now. Apparently Chad was very close to the leader, Christopher Parrott. He's 60, lives in Rigby, Idaho. Chad convinced himself and Lori that the two children were possessed by evil spirits. As I say, he also predicted that an earthquake would hit Utah around the time of the children's disappearance and would divert attention from them going missing. They were both so convinced of his revelations, they believed there was going to be a massive earthquake. And it was predicted that they knew the date. According to a friend, she understood that he truly believed that those children were zombies, and he convinced Lori of that same thing. They were convinced that they would not have to deal with the consequences of destroying the children because of the fallout of the earthquake would be so monumental. It would be such a huge distraction, nobody would know that they buried the kids. So the following information I've kind of took from the affidavits that were released recently, most of it anyway, both from Chad's and from Lori's affidavit. I think that came out a little while ago, if I'm correct. Chad's was released a few days ago. We'll just go over, I'm just going to go over what some of the main things that were covered in the affidavit. Some of it is quite difficult to hear. It's quite disgusting what they did to those children, so just please be wary of that. So they confirmed that the Rexburg Police Department had been involved since November 26th in the search for Joshua and Tylee. That's when his JJ's grandparents flagged it up that they hadn't seen the children for a long time. And that's when Rexburg police first conducted a welfare check at Lori's home. So young Joshua would have been just 8 years old in May. He had autism and he took a drug called risperidone to help treat irritability related to his autism. And he had a service dog called Bailey. JJ's father, Charles Vallow, spent thousands of dollars getting the animal, which was trained to assist JJ and help with his autism. Weeks after Charles was shot dead by Lori's brother, Lori tried to sell the dog for $2,500. Fortunately, the trainer saw the advert and she was told that she had to return the dog to the rescue group. Lori then emailed that rescue group asking about finding another family for Bailey due to a change in life circumstances. The dog was picked up the following month and they were pleased to say they were able to rehouse Bailey with another special needs child. JJ was enrolled for 3 weeks at Kennedy Elementary School in Rexburg. On September 24th, Lori informed the school that JJ would be homeschooled. They made a point about Chad knowing about what was going on. They said that he was in Kauai on February 20th when Lori was arrested on desertion charges. Lieutenant Bombell actually put the affidavits together, certainly Chad's, was actually present at that arrest. Chad was also present at the March 6th initial appearance for Lori in Madison County, so they're basically saying Chad was well aware of the health and well-being of her minor children, of JJ and Tylee. As we know, the last verifiable sighting of Tylee was on September 8th in Yellowstone National Park. Last sighting of JJ was on September 22nd in his mother's apartment by Lori's close friend Melanie Gibb. Although that does conflict with what I initially saw, was that he was seen at school on the 23rd, but there you go. Though Lori's arrest affidavit stated that JJ was last seen at school on the 23rd, like I just say. Lori moved to Rexburg on or about September 1st, 2019, with her children, Tylee, Joshua, and her brother, Alex Cox. Alex resided in the same complex, which I found a bit weird. And also, Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreau, or I think it's now Melanie Pawlowski, who's also very much into the religion as well. She also lived in the same complex, which I find kind of strange that all three of them all live so close together. Lori lived in Unit 107, just for point of reference. Melanie Gibb, that's Lori's friend, has cooperated with Idaho and Arizona law enforcement regarding the investigation of the children. What do you think about Melanie Gibb, guys? I think she's got a lot more to answer for. In my opinion, I think she knew a lot more and she could have certainly spoken up a lot earlier. I don't know how you guys feel about Melanie Gibb. That's Lori's friend, who's also very much into the religion as well. Melanie reported that through September 19th to the morning of September 23rd, she visited Lori at her new residence in Rexburg. When she arrived, Lori informed her that JJ had become a zombie. Melanie reports that the term zombie refers to an individual whose mortal spirit has left their body and that their body is now the host of another spirit. So basically like they've been possessed. While this dark spirit inhabits the host body, the person's true spirit goes into limbo and is stuck there until the host body is physically killed. So I would have to ask Melanie if she knew, or she knew what a zombie meant at that point. She's very much heavily into this same religion that Lori and Chad were into. If Lori's telling her at that point that her child's a zombie, she knew full well what that entailed. Should she have spoken up? Should she have warned somebody then? How do you feel about that? I mean, some people say, well, she was so brainwashed and so, so much into the religion. But, at what point do you not become responsible for your actions because of a religion you're following? That's very dangerous ground, isn't it? If you just try and blame everything on religion and that you were brainwashed and you didn't really know what you were doing, that's kind of uncomfortable ground for me. She has done numerous interviews, Melanie Gibb, now I understand. I haven't listened to them all. I'm interested to listen to them all, to hear what she's got to say. I imagine she's probably doing a certain amount of backtracking at the moment. As such, death of the physical body is seen as the mechanism by which the body's original spirit can be released from limbo. This belief was told to Melanie Gibb by Lori Vallow. Lori had learned it from Chad. Melanie further reported that Lori called Tylee a zombie in the spring of 2019. Melanie was on the phone with Lori and heard Lori call Tylee a zombie. Tylee responded, "Not me, Mum." Lori also told Melanie that Tylee had turned into a zombie when she was 12 or 13, which coincidentally was approximately the same time that Tylee had become difficult to deal with. Melanie Gibb further informed investigators that she was told by Chad and Lori that they held the religious belief that they were part of the Church of the Firstborn. And as we've heard before, their mission in that church was to lead the 144,000 mentioned in the book of Revelation. They also stated that their mission was to rid the world of zombies. Sounds like some kind of crazy horror film when you read this out. Sorry guys, I'm just making sure I've got the right images up on screen. The FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team, also known as CAST, have had a very close look at Alex Cox's phone, Lori's brother, and his vehicle GPS. The September 8th picture of the trip to Yellowstone National Park was further established by tracking Alex Cox's phone activities. It's surmised that they drove there in Alex's silver Ford F-150 backed up by the GPS, cell tower connections, and Google account information on Alex's phone. Their analysis uses cellular devices, GPS data points, cell tower connections, Wi-Fi, and Google tracking information. GPS data points can place a device within a 6-meter radius. It's pretty amazing actually what they can do with somebody's phone, what they can tell from somebody's phone. Alex Cox exited the west entrance of Yellowstone National Park at 1840. Later that evening, his phone is then at Lori's apartment until 21:35, at which time Cox appeared to go to the Maverick on Main Street in Rexburg at 21:43. I took a few bits of this out because they weren't really relevant. Alex Cox then went back to Lori's apartment from 22:44 to 23:15. At 23:44, Alex Cox is located at his residence in apartment 107. Remember, they're in the same complex though. Then at 12 a.m, or between 12 a.m. and 12:44, Alex's phone was located at his apartment. However, at 2:42 in the morning, or between 2:42 in the morning and 3:37, Alexis Cox is located again at Lori's apartment. So middle of the night, 20 to 3, 3:30, 20 to 4, he's at Lori's apartment. I say that's significant not only because of the time, but also because that's the only time in September that he appeared to go over to Lori's between midnight and 6 a.m. At 4:37 hours, Alex went back to his own apartment. 9:21 that morning, so we're now September 9th, he was located at a property with the address 202. I won't give you the address, but it's in Rexburg. It's a residence of Chad Daybell. It's actually in Fremont County. The 9:21 reading on his phone is a GPS data point and places him behind the home on Chad Daybell's property near the east end of the barn. Alex's phone was still at the residence at 10:40 a.m. At this time, we were unable to tell if he was actually inside. His phone shows a hit at the city of St. Anthony shortly after. They're unable to tell whether he was there or whether he was still at the Daybell residence. 10:57 to 11:39, Alex Cox is located at the Daybell property. So they've got him pinpointed there. Basically, they've got his phone there, his vehicle there, at Chad Daybell's property. Day after that photo was taken of Tylee and JJ at Yellowstone National Park, that was the day after she went missing. And of course, since transpired that Chad Daybell's property was where the children were buried. So it's not rocket science, is it, to kind of figure out what's happened there. I think law enforcement believe that at least he's transported that day Tylee's body to Chad's place to be buried, in my opinion. I don't know at this point whether Alex killed the children or whether he just transported their bodies. I don't know. I guess that's something that the investigation they're going to have to find out. On June 1st, 2020, I was informed, well, not me, this is from the affidavit, the detective was informed by Special Agent Ricky Wright of the FBI that the FBI had been examining a phone believed to be owned by Tammy Daybell. Tammy was Chad's wife and died on October 19th. FBI found a text conversation between Tammy and her husband, Chad, on September 9th. So this is the same day that they've pinpointed Alex Cox going to Chad's property, day after Tylee disappeared. That text conversation read as follows. Chad to Tammy at 11:53 a.m. Well, I've had an interesting morning. I felt I should burn all of the limb debris, I presume he means tree debris, by the fire pit before it got too soaked by the coming storms. While I did so, I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun, and he was still walking along. I got close enough that one shot did the trick. He is now in our pet cemetery. Fun times. Chad to Tammy at 11:56. Gonna shower now and then go right for a while at BYU. Sorry, that's Tammy to Chad. Love you. Brigham, is it Brigham Young University? BYU. Tammy to Chad at 2:47. Good for you. Tammy to Chad at 2:48. I'm back home now. Now, the investigation found this text suspicious, as raccoons are normally nocturnal animals and not out during the day. It should be noted that from interviewing neighbours of Chad, we are aware that in mid-July of 2019, Garth Daybell, Chad's son, told their neighbours that Chad had shot a raccoon out of a tree on their property during the day. Those neighbours are named Matt and Regan Price. Garth told Matt Price about the raccoon in response to a question from Matt about hearing a gunshot. The Prices informed me that the fire pit in the back of Daybell's property was hardly ever used until the last few months. Matt informed me that there appeared to be frequent bonfires in the pit on the Daybell property over the last few months, and the first one she noticed was soon after Tammy's death on October 19th, 2019. On June 2nd, Detective Bruce Mattingly of the Fremont County Sheriff's Office contacted Samantha Williams, the sister of Tammy. He asked her if she was aware of a pet cemetery on Chad and Tammy Daybell's property in Idaho. She informed him that she was aware of the pet cemetery and stated that both she and Tammy were pet people and that they had both had pet cemeteries. When asked about the location of the pet cemetery on the Daybell property, she stated that it was east of the Red Barn and near the fire pit. On June 4th, I spoke with Samantha and she informed me that she was aware of the location of the pet cemetery on the Daybell property because Tammy had shown it to her. Samantha was then shown an aerial photograph of the Daybell property and she pointed to the same area near the fire pit where Alex Cox's phone had pinged on September 9th. These facts established that Alex Cox appeared to be at the Daybell property on September 9th until at least 11:39. Chad sent the text to Tammy about burning debris and shooting and burying the raccoon in the pet cemetery only 14 minutes later. The pet cemetery referenced by Chad is located at the same location as most of the pings on Alex Cox's phone on September 9th. It's quite clever how they piece all that together, really, isn't it? And look how far back they can go with phone data. I mean, that's gone right back to September 2019. Almost seems like Alex Cox was almost the family hitman, doesn't it? I mean, he's been a key. Seems to be a key assistant to everything that's happened, doesn't he? So he's just as nefarious a figure, to be perfectly honest, in my mind, as Chad and Lori. On June 3rd, they interviewed Melanie Gibb and her boyfriend David Warwick. They discussed in depth the weekend of September 22nd and 23rd, 2019, due to the fact that both Melanie and her boyfriend David stayed at Lori's residence in Rexburg that weekend. Melanie informed me that she arrived in Rexburg on September 19th. Soon after she arrived, Lori Vallow informed Melanie that JJ had become a zombie, pointed out behaviours such as sitting still and watching TV, claiming that JJ said he loved Satan, and an increased vocabulary evidence that JJ was now a zombie. Melanie observed JJ's behaviour and felt it to be the same as she had always observed it. Can I just ask there how you would feel if a friend of yours started saying that stuff to you. Surely that's a massive red flag, right? Trouble is, of course, you know, it's indoctrinated into their religion, isn't it? I guess it's, I don't know. I still just feel that Melanie Gibb's got some questions to answer. That's just my personal opinion. I don't mean to put any heat on her or anything, but it just seems that way to me. The last time Melanie and her boyfriend verifiably saw JJ was on the night of September 22nd. David Warwick informed us that it was late and that Melanie, Lori, and him were going to do a podcast. David Warwick, Melanie Gibb's boyfriend, said that JJ was acting up, and so Alex Cox took JJ to his apartment in the complex. When Alex returned later that night, he was carrying JJ, who appeared to be asleep with his head on Alex's shoulder. Warwick specifically remembered this because he saw it as a tender moment. That made me think of his risperidone, his autism drug at that time. Is that a possibility that he could have drugged? Could Alex Cox have drugged JJ? It was just a thought I had. I know his drug was for irritability for his autism. I haven't done too much research on that particular drug, but I just wondered if it had sedating properties to it. I'm not sure. Warwick further informed us that when he woke up on the morning of September 23rd, of course that was the day that JJ was believed to have gone missing, wasn't it? He asked Lori where JJ was. This was between 8 and 9 a.m. Lori informed him and Melanie that JJ had been acting like a zombie and had been crawling on the kitchen cabinetry and had gotten on top of the cabinets in the space between the cabinet and the ceiling. She informed Warwick and Gibb that when JJ had climbed upon the cabinetry, he had knocked a picture of Jesus off the refrigerator. JJ then informed David and Melanie that Alex had come and taken JJ. Give me 1 second, guys. I've just got to plug my laptop in. It's going to run out of battery. Okay. Again, surely there's more questions should have been asked by Melanie and her boyfriend, David Warwick. I haven't looked too much into him, actually. Don't know whether he's still her boyfriend or not, if anyone knows that. Like I say, there's so many aspects to this case, it's damn near impossible to try and put everything down. I'll be here for a week telling you every single aspect or every single angle and offshoot on this case. It's ridiculous. Okay, I think we are getting near the end now, guys. Let me just get the next set of images. So, like I say, the FBI CAST team, cellular analysis, also analysed Alex Cox's movements the morning of September 23rd, 2019. At 9:55 a.m. that morning, Alex is again on Chad's property, and he was there until 10:12 a.m. His pings located him right near the pond on Chad's property at the northern edge. On June 3rd this year, investigators asked Special Agent Ricky White of the FBI to analyse the frequency of Alex's visits to Chad's property during the month of September. His response was that you check the visits by Alex to Chad's house again. There were only 4 visits by Alex during the month of September. They were on the 6th, 9th, 23rd and 25th. During the visits on the 6th and 25th, all the pings were in and around the house. There were no pings anywhere in the backyard, and the visits were very short. But on the 9th and the 23rd, the visits were much longer, and the pings were in the backyard near the fire pit and near the pond. Visit on the 9th, he was there for approximately 2.5 hours. On June 9th, a search warrant was executed at Chad Daybell's residence and property. With the assistance of a local FBI emergency response team or evidence response team, we located at least multiple sites of interest. These sites were identified and corresponded to the cellular data on Alex Cox's phone when he was on the property mentioned previously. Additionally, one of the possible sites correlated to a location on the property that Chad had texted his wife about. The first site of interest was located on the north side of the pond, near the north edge of the property. This site corresponded with the 2 GPS pings from Alex's phone on September 23rd. A patch of ground was located that appeared to be disturbed. The weed growth on top of the disturbed ground was shorter than the surrounding weed growth. What appeared to be sod, I think that's turf basically, etching was also noticed. Disturbed area is approximately 4 feet by 2.5 feet. Members of the FBI ERT team removed the top layer of sod. Underneath the layer were several large flat rocks. Rocks were removed and 2 pieces of flat panelling were found. Panelling was removed and investigators exposed a round object covered in black plastic. Some of you might find this a little bit graphic, just to warn you, it's not very pleasant to be honest. Upon exposing the round object covered in black plastic, a strong odour was noticed. An FBI ERT member used a small, sharp instrument and made a small incision in the plastic, and a layer of white plastic was observed. An incision was made into the white layer of plastic, exposing what appeared to be human remains. The crown of a head covered in light brown hair. The remaining dirt around this object was methodically removed, exposing what appeared to be a body wrapped in black plastic. The plastic appeared to be tightly wrapped around the body and secured with duct tape. Cheryl Anderson, Associate Professor of Anthropology at Boise State University, was present on scene and advised that the remains found near the pond appeared to be human. A second site of interest was located behind a red unattached outbuilding located roughly in the centre of the property near a fire pit. Next to the fire pit is an area used as a pet cemetery. This site correlated to several GPS pings of Alex Cox's phone on September 9th, 2019. Ground in this area was probed with a steel pole. Several areas of disturbed ground were located. During a search of this ground, a buried cat and dog remains were found. A backhoe, which is basically like a small digger, I don't know if you can see on that picture, then on the kind of right hand side, was used to dig further layers of dirt. While doing this, bricks were located approximately a foot below the ground. Once the bricks were discovered, the soil was examined and what appeared to be 2 bones were located. Based on the condition of the bones, Cheryl Anderson was not able to determine whether the bones were human. Methodically, the dirt in this area was searched and several other items of interest were found, including other bones, charred tissue and charred bones. Cheryl Anderson indicated that these additional bones, both charred and uncharred, and tissue found,
were human remains. Investigators provided photos of some of the partial remains that were found at the pet cemetery. A forensic anthropologist, Dr. Getz, was able to identify those remains as being non-adult human remains. While officers were conducting their search, Chad Daybell was observed by officers to be continuously watching where officers were searching. He was observed watching officers while sitting in his vehicle in his front driveway and while sitting in his vehicle across the street at his daughter's residence. Around the time the head mentioned in paragraph previously was discovered, Chad Daybell was observed leaving his daughter's residence in a grey SUV. I and other officers pursued him in police vehicles, conducted a traffic stop and detained him due to the fact that human remains were discovered on his property. Chad trying to do a little runner, didn't get very far, did he? And that's tragically, as we know, last week, that was how this whole saga ended. I mean, it's just a bizarre, evil, wicked, complex story, isn't it? But ultimately, the end of it, you've got 4 lives that have just been wasted, that have just been taken for what reason? It's just disgusting, really. The trail of destruction that's been left behind, isn't it? It is very complex. It is very, very complex. As I say, there's lots of stuff. There's stuff that I've left out as well. It's extremely complex. There's so many people involved, and I have absolutely no doubt, like I say, that other people are going to be coming out with their stories. There's going to be family members, there's going to be members of the church, people that knew them, friends. I think already a lot of them are starting to do interviews. I think Lori's niece may have done a Dateline interview in the last few days. Melanie Gibb's been doing them with East Idaho News. Probably doing a lot of backtracking, I would imagine, a lot of them. Because I don't know about you, but I have the feeling that they must have known a lot more than what they are saying. I mean, surely when Tylee disappeared, surely Melanie Gibb would have been wondering where she was, right? Before then, JJ went missing. I mean, that was a couple of weeks. Would she not have wondered where Tylee was? People must have wondered where she was. People that were close to Lori at that time. Yeah, I'd like to know about the church members. I wonder if they need to be investigated. I'm not saying it necessarily the whole Church of the Latter-day Saints, but this kind of offshoot, this avow, this kind of extremist element to it. Like I say, how do you know there's not another Chad and Lori in that group? Well, certainly the brains are as far gone as what Chad and Lori's were, or are. I think there's a whole lot more questions that are going to have to be asked in this whole story before you even get to, what you could say is justice for everyone, to be perfectly honest. There's justice for JJ, isn't there? There's justice for Tylee, there's justice for Tammy, there's justice for Charles. All 4 of them. And there's 2 kids, their whole lives ahead of them. Caught up with a deluded evil mother and her new husband and her brother. So it looks like these poor kids didn't stand a chance, did they? Or did they? Maybe, like I say, maybe people should have spoken up a long time ago. A long time ago. In addition to this, Laurie's niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux, I think his name is, he was shot at, allegedly by Alex Cox as well. And like I say, the other questions in the case, Tammy, a young fit mother, dying suddenly. 3 days later, she's buried. No autopsy. Chad didn't want an autopsy. Okay, that's fine. Buried her without an autopsy. Gets $420,000 life insurance. No hard questions asked. Following on from that, paying out this huge life insurance with no autopsy of a young woman that's just suddenly died for no reason, apparent reason whatsoever. 420k. No doubt him and Lori were living it up in Hawaii on that money. It just makes you sick, doesn't it? No, that's right, Jerry. You don't need to have an autopsy in Idaho. There is no state medical examiner's office. They have county coroners which decide whether or not you have an autopsy, and it seems like family members have some input into that as well. If they say they don't want an autopsy, well, certainly in this case, Chad said he didn't want one, and so they didn't have one. And then, of course, there's Charles. Of course, Alex Cox, who shot him's now deceased, but who else is responsible for his death? Certainly Lori. Who else? Who knows? The poor bloke knew that she wanted him dead. He was crying out for help. He was trying to get help for her. If anyone's not seen the video on our channel, there's a video where the police body cam, where he's at a hotel and he's trying to find Lori basically, and he's explains to the police that Lori's just lost her mind, doesn't believe that he's him anymore. She's got these crazy religious beliefs. He's trying to get help for her, and I'm not sure if they really took him seriously, to be perfectly honest. That raises questions again, doesn't it? So someone in his position, should he have been taken a little more seriously and considering what happened to him? Poor guy he seemed like a real good father. Took in JJ with his autism, got him that service dog, was doing everything he could for his family, and his wife in the meantime was losing the plot. But if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to ask them. Hope everything's going all right in the chat. Thanks, Kimberly Firefly, for looking after you guys. JD's got sticky hands with her hand sanitizer. She's retracting her comments, guys. Don't panic. She's not having them deleted. Just while I'm here, I will say, I will just address it because a few of you are probably wondering, but there was someone that obviously we introduced to our channel and kind of gave them a voice, if you like. Little clue there, you probably know what I'm talking about if I say voice. Disappointed with what's happened with them, but that's all I'll say about that. There's a reason why they're kind of not around this channel anymore, and that is for good reason, because we felt that that person was no longer really sticking up for what we stick up for, to be perfectly honest, and where our channel, or how our channel operates, how it's always been, our ethos. you know, it's always been for victims. You always try and put the victim story out, and of course, a fundamental part of that was the Rosette family, of course, with the Watts case. And you know, we started out to help and protect them and to help, you know, stop them being used and abused and exploited. You know, and there's various people and channels that are still doing that. So for somebody to then support those people and still try and be a part of our channel, you know, it is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. You know, I certainly personally, and I know Kimberly and Firefly and True Helper are the same. You know, we value loyalty more than anything else, above anything else on this channel. You know, you subscribers, you're a fantastically loyal bunch. You know, you've all got a great set of morals, and you know, we're eternally thankful for that. And you know, we're not going to operate any different way ever. So, you know, if you don't see people on this channel, there's a reason for them not being on this channel. Let me just say that. But it was a shame. It is a shame. I don't wish her any ill will or anything. You know, she do what she wants to do, but you know, some things just don't mix. You know, I've got a famous saying: oil and water don't mix. However hard you try, oil and water will never mix. And there's certain things in life that will just never mix. And you know, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. You know, it's not about high school antics. You know, it's about what you believe in and sticking up for what you believe in. And you know, sometimes you just got to do that for the good of everybody. So that's why you won't see certain people on this channel. But if you look out there on the community, I'm sure you'll see why. It doesn't take rocket science to see why. But I just wanted to address that. I just wanted to put that out there. I have seen a few of you commenting and stuff like that on other channels, and I just wanted to make it clear where we stand. So we don't wish anyone any ill will. We just sometimes you've got to make a stand for what you believe in above other people. So right, guys, I am absolutely sweating here. I'm hot as anything. I heard someone else mention that it's hot. We had it. Got in the car earlier today. It went up to. This is in the car, mine, sat in the sun, but it went up to 37. I think we were about 31 degrees here today. It was about 90. We got it tomorrow as well. Extremely hot. Extremely hot. And my brain's a bit fried. So I am probably going to hop off now. So I hope that kind of made sense. Please watch it back. If anything didn't make sense, that's kind of what I feel are the major points of the story. And I wanted to try and put a little bit of the victims' voices out there. So I hope I've done that in this video. It's a bit of a complex story, I understand, and people don't quite understand all of it, but it does start to fit after you start to you start to get into it. It will start to make sense. And also look out on YouTube. There's going to be, I know there's a lot of other interviews of people that are involved in this case going on at the moment on Dateline and East Idaho News. East Idaho News have got a long interview with Melanie Gibb, who we talked about a lot in this video here. Lori's sister, who's also part of the religion, who I feel should have stepped in a lot sooner. And I think she's got a lot of answers, or a lot of questions to answer. She's done interviews, so interesting if you listen to those, see what you think. And Lori's niece as well, Melanie Palowski, who's very much heavy into the religion. Actually, I think Melanie Gibb may be getting out of the religion, but Melanie Palowski, Lori's niece, is very much into it. So look out for those interviews as well on YouTube. I think you'll find them interesting. But No, thanks for joining us, guys. Anyway, as I say, thanks to Kimberly, thanks to Firefly for looking after you guys. You're always so great and gracious in chat. Thank you to everyone. Thanks to Glam Dolly, Helen Rowley, Dorothy C, Sue Dumas, Lani, Hippie, JD, Stella Bella, my three rosebuds. And if I've missed anyone, I'm sorry. Glowing Ember, MIA, welcome. Any new people listening for the first time, welcome. Welcome to the channel. Please hit the like button on the way out. That's all I ask of you. If you could do that, I'd be most appreciated. Or if you want to hit the down button, that's fine. Just gives a bit of reaction for the channel. So it shows that people are actually watching it to YouTube, which is useful. But I will bid you all good night. Stay safe, stay cool, and take care.